Real golf talk. This is Play It Where It Lies, a Bash Brothers Media golf show and podcast.
Welcome in to Play It Where It Lies. I'm John Wiener, the Gent, Stuart, Conway, and Stuart's back with us. You talk about the ultimate Play It Where It Lies moment. We had to bring in Hackin Hank to host the show last week. I'm glad you're here.
Well, yeah, I watched the beginning of the show, saw Hank on there. I thought he was pretty impressive. I love the glasses and the dropping the golf clubs. I don't know if he meant to do it, but it was good.
Entirely. It was all sort of a bit of a script and a bit of, let's roll it out. But yeah, he did do a great job.
Yeah, he did.
It was fun to have Hackin Hank. We're glad everybody's with us this week for our U.S. Open preview show, and glad you're back. How was Phoenix?
Phoenix was terrific. Had a great time in Phoenix, and with our children down there, some terrific golf courses down there. You can't throw a rock and not hit a golf course, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
I mean,
and such great conditions in the desert.
And I'll talk about this in one of our little segments later, but Golf Now, I have to tell you, that's a deal worth looking at.
Golf Now, like
Golf Now,
the app,
the app,
Golf Now. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I'll explain a little.
I'd be interested to see what you say,
there,
because we've seen like Golf Now in the golf industry and the lexicon for a decade, and I never really use it. But if the Gent recommends it, then it's something that we have to look into. Well, I tell you what we're looking into this week on Play It Where It Lies, U.S. Open Week. Ryan Ballengee is going to join us with Golf News Net, which I'm always excited for. He does a great job. But Stuart, as we get into our tee shots, I am as excited for this U.S. Open, I think, as I've been in a long time.
Yeah, this is really turning into a really strange one for me, and. Nobody's really talked about the USGA, this one, and we hope they don't.
Mm-hmm. And we will in our Tough Lies segment and kind of examine, how did we get to this place in the first place? That's what I want to know. Has this always been the case, and what's the solution? But we'll hit that in Tough Lies.
Yeah, we will. We will there. But it's just the field is so, it seems, there are so many things that can happen this week, and there are so many players who are surprisingly high odds.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed at looking at the way that the bookies, as we will call them in England, have got this all set up for us, and they're the obvious favourites, but there's some strange ones out there.
Well, we've done a really good job in the first two majors of the year in terms of our picks, and we'll have that punch outs at the end of the show. I think we got National No-Show, Father's Day Fixture, Patriot in the pack, and of course our national champion. So we'll have that at the end of the show. But Stuart, what excites me about it is, let's be honest, like Pebble Beach is a crown jewel of the U.S. Open Rota. Pebble Beach is a magnificent sort of 5-star, as good as it gets venue, I think, that you can have for this tournament, compared to an Erin Hills, which we didn't know about, compared to a Chambers Bay, where there was a lot of controversy about, and Shinnecock, supposedly a great U.S. Open venue, that was turned into a disaster last year. So when you talk about the look, the feel, the status of Pebble Beach, but also the history of the U.S. Opens at Pebble. I mean, it is sort of a who's who and a what's what of great U.S. Open moments, from Jack's 1-iron win in 72, his first U.S. Open win, all the way through Tiger in 2010. And you talk about Watson's chip in 82. I mean, this is like the U.S. Open should be at its best.
Yeah, it should be. It definitely should be. And I love Crenshaw's quote, which I'm going to have to paraphrase because I don't remember it exactly.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's a magnificent golf course and one of the greatest golf courses, but the golf can be almost overshadowed by the spectacularness of the scenery around it. And if you go there and play it, you might not play good golf because you're busy looking around at what's around you and where
worried about the fee you just paid.
Yeah. Well, that's true too. Yeah, a difficult course to concentrate on, and a tough test of golf. Tough test of golf all around.
We'll get into a lot of those questions and Play It, Drop It, Roll It coming up, which I'm excited about. We'll re-tee it now, and certainly lots more to come on the U.S. Open. But I think another reason why this week is ratcheted up, Stuart, is what Rory McIlroy did in Canada these past 4 days, and specifically on Sunday with the 61 to win going away. Your thoughts on sort of Rory's performance and what that did say about how we see him coming into this week?
Well, I think this performance here, coming off a miscut, coming off, he's had a great season by all standards. You know, let's be honest. Well, he's not there. He hasn't won it. He's faded away. He missed a cut. But man, the guy's
bunch of top fives, Players Championship win.
Yeah, he's having a great season, and I think one of the things that I learned in the post win interview was when he said that he was comfortable now playing his game and going to a place like Pebble Beach where you might try and direct the ball, shape the ball a certain way. He said, I think my game's in good enough shape just to play my game and go there. And I think maybe this is what's been wrong with Rory. He's been trying to get a little too technical about it in his head. And I think the one thing that I think that we learned over the past few majors in particular is that Koepka has won by being aggressive on the golf course. He has hit the ball a long way. You're going to need to hit it a fair distance at Pebble Beach. And, you know, the reason McIlroy went to Canada was because they had Poana greens.
I think it's a great point about the difference in Koepka's mentality versus Rory's mentality in the majors, because it does seem like Rory's overthinking it a little bit. And he talked about that at Augusta. I respected the course too much early on. And it does seem like Koepka has a clarity right now that maybe is not present with McIlroy.
I would totally agree with that. And maybe this is the breakthrough moment for McIlroy in you know, winning more majors, you know, than he has already. I think also that Koepka's attitude on there is changing other players' attitude to the way that they play major championships.
Really well said, Stuart. Really well said.
And I think that people are looking at him and looking at that. Koepka's kind of like the guy now where he's got nothing to lose at major championships. He comes in and he bombs it away. If he succeeds, he succeeds. And it's working for him.
And also, you know, I can worry about all this other stuff, or I can focus on this guy who's kicking my ass every week and like let me go beat him, you know. And it I think for Jordan Spieth as well as Rory McIlroy, Dustin Johnson, we talked about a couple of weeks ago. All of a sudden, he's making some changes within his camp because Koepka, like Tiger did so many years ago, said, "Look, there's another standard out here right now." I'll say this on Rory. And what he did at Canada to shoot 61 going away. And I texted somebody, people shoot 60s on Fridays. Rory's done it on Sunday a few times. And I thought, and it's still a little bit of this with Rory, that kind of we know what the deal is already with Rory. And we know the conversation is about winning. But it showed once again I think sort of what all of the fuss is about. And I think it just goes to show you that how good Rory can be. Like, we know it, but Stuart, we haven't quite gotten a reminder of it lately that when he's at his best, he's better than anyone in the world. Anyone in the entire world. And he was at his best on Sunday and shot 61 to lap an incredible field. And like we saw, like that is the Rory McIlroy that people fell in love with. And that is the Rory to be feared.
It definitely is. And I do believe that Rory has the capability. It's always been so difficult looking at people in the past. And until Mickelson did it and won the Scottish Open in Loch Lomond and then followed it up with a British Open win, and even I'm calling it the British Open now. You would say that winning the week before a major was not a good thing to do. You know, has Rory peaked a week too early? I don't know the answer to that one. We will see.
And we'll see and play it, drop it, roll it. Look, so many great questions in that. I love that segment. But real quick, some Play It Where It Lies award, whether in golf and life, you get some tough spots and you have some tough situations. And it's all about how you deal with it, how you play it. So your Play It Where It Lies award this week.
My Play It Where It Lies award is a huge congratulations to Jan Stevenson for being elected into the Golf Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
And
Tell us more.
Well, so Jan Stevenson, as was the looker on the LPGA Tour and became this a vision rather than a golfer. And I think for her to be recognized for her golf, and for us to remember how great she was as a player, I think it's kudos to the Hall of Fame for putting her in there. And I think it's wonderful that Jan Stevenson's got in there because of her abilities.
Awesome.
So kudos to Jan Stevenson. Play It Where It Lies award comes from me, that one.
I'm going to stay along the same lines, interestingly. I didn't know a lot about Jan Stevenson, but I'm going to go with Lexi Thompson this week. Similarly sort of seen as, one of the, as you said, a looker on the PGA Tour. I mean, but Lexi Thompson is the full package.
Yes.
And won this week with after she 3-putts on 15, goes birdie eagle finish after blowing a lead to go 2 shots down on the 15th hole. Lexi, as she's wont to do, it fired her up. It got her mad, and all of a sudden she's in a bad situation, and she finished with a flourish with that firepower that Lexi has that few women do on the PGA, on the LPGA Tour. 7th straight year with a victory. She's a little bit sort of Dustin Johnson-like. It's like in the big situations, she doesn't always get it done. She puts herself there all the time, but over a 7-8 year stretch, her body of work and what she brings to the LPGA Tour year in and year out is almost unrivaled. Lexi Thompson, and then also Graham McDowell on the guy's side. You've got a 30-footer to get into the Open Championship that's at his home course in Portrush. Everyone knew what was on the line for that putt. Graham McDowell knew, and no one wanted to make it more. No one wanted to get in that tournament more than McDowell himself, and he bangs in a 30-footer on the 18th hole to get it done.
He knew it too.
Yeah.
His side note, his brother works at the course.
At Portrush.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's going to
There was a lot of good Irish whiskey consumed between Graham and his family and the fans in Portrush.
Yeah, I mean, when you can think about there how well the Irish did, Rory, Shane Lowry, McDowell coming through, just terrific. Terrific for Irish golf.
Yeah, so those are Play It Where It Lies awards. Jan Stevenson for me, Lexi Thompson, and Graham McDowell, and of course. You mentioned Graham. The last time the U.S. Open was at Pebble Beach, it was Graham McDowell who emerged as the winner as everyone else just crumbled around him, collapsed around. U.S. Open week show. He's the Gent, Stuart, Conway. I'm John Wiener. Hackin Hank back behind the camera where he belongs. Josh the Juice on the audio. No, Hank did a great job last week. We can poke fun. It was so great to have him come in, and we enjoyed talking golf so much. We're going to talk with Ryan Ballengee as well, Golf Newsnet coming up. But on the other side of the break, the USGA, Phil Mickelson, a big caddy making an appearance we don't know about, Tiger, Brooks. It's all there. You know the drill. Play it, drop it, roll it. Coming up next.
Golf puts you in tough spots. We play it where it lies.
Hey, this is the Gent bringing you back now with our favorite part of the show. Play it, drop it, roll it.
Play it, drop it, or roll it.
Just a great time for us to look at some issues. And,
it's all U.S. Open stuff
it's
this
all
week.
U.S. Open.
Pebble
It's
Beach
U.S. Open
stuff.
week. And who's going to lead us off? You want me to lead us off this week?
Yeah, sure. Well,
I'm
go ahead.
do
Start
that.
it off. And again, we're asking the tough questions, and we're going to have to decide whether we're going to play it, drop it, or roll it. Go ahead.
That's exactly right. So, are you playing, dropping, or rolling? Brooks Koepka is the man to beat.
I'm playing this in its entirety. It's the only answer that you can have. This is a guy who's number one in the world. He's won the last 2 U.S. Opens. He's going for a three-peat. I know Rory won by 100 in Canada, and I know Tiger won the Masters. But the guy who's coming off of the PGA win, who's won the last 2 U.S. Opens, who's number one in the world, who seemingly is just a terminator in these major championships, I think all the way. Play it. Brooks Koepka is the man to beat.
I haven't heard a single person say that Brooks Koepka is not in their top 3.
Yeah, don't we have to, I mean, is there any other answer here?
Yeah, there isn't. He is the man to beat. He's been laying low. He's getting himself primed up for this one. He's got the length. He can putt. Yeah. And you're going to have to make some putts this week. He rolls the ball really nicely. Poana greens, we all know. If he's playing late on in the day, they get a little rough, a little sketchy, and a good putter is going to roll the ball much smoother than somebody who's not quite there with it, and I think that's a key to him this week.
A lot of interesting things you said in there. You talk about rough, you talk about setup, so I'll move to this one.
Okay.
The USGA will muck it up this week.
I'm not going to play that one. I think the USGA cannot muck up Pebble Beach.
I'm with you. I agree. I agree. I'm going to drop it. I think surely they're going to get this one right.
Leave it alone. It is everything a golf course needs to be. It's got length. It's got It's got spectacular views.
Well, and it's the size of the greens, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
small
what that
greens.
is
They're not
one
big
thing
greens,
that makes
yeah.
Pebble really difficult. Is
Yeah.
it plays long and brutish. It's not that long, but it plays sort
Yeah.
of U.S. Open long. But it's these tiny, tiny greens. I mean, the par
greens.
3, I guess 5 and 7 both. I mean, are so tiny. That is really in a lot of ways what gives Pebble its teeth. And so people say, look, the greens are small enough. You don't have to shave them. You don't have to put the pins in stupid spots.
No, you don't. And I think that they will recognize this, the USGA, you know, and they're not my favorite people, as you well know, and I hope we don't have to come back next week talking about the USGA.
Last year, it was the entire conversation at Shinnecock. We'll get into that in Tough Lies and see if we can't put out some fixes. Play it, drop it, roll it. Phil Mickelson, 6 U.S. Open runner-up finishes, going for the career Grand Slam. Phil Mickelson will contend.
I'm dropping it. I don't think Phil will contend this week. I think he's. I don't know where he is in the betting right now. I'm sure he's probably up around 18, 20 to 1, somewhere in that region of outside of the top 10. I think Phil's had his opportunities to win U.S. Opens, and I'm sorry to say, I think it's by the wayside, this one. Do I think he's got the game? Could it happen? Would I be surprised?
49 years old.
Yeah, be the oldest player to win ever.
In an age where players are playing younger and playing longer, and Phil's hitting it further, I'm going to roll it. And here's what I mean. Like, I think that what we'll see from Phil is kind of what we saw at Augusta, and you tend to see from guys and greats of the games as they get older. He will flash. I think we'll see Phil on Friday get people excited. Remember at Augusta, he was right around there, and he makes this video coming into Magnolia Lane. I'm dropping bombs, and he dropped off the leaderboard. But I think Phil, you know, the problem, Stuart, is when you're 49 years old, or a big problem is doing it over 4 days. Again, in a course that gets tougher as the pressure ratchets up against the best players in the world, and, you know, especially the putting stroke. I think Phil will play well early. I think he'll contend, but I think by Sunday, as the tournament really is on the line, I don't think we'll see him.
I mean, I hope he makes the weekend, and we get to see him, and we get to see him at some point in time, as you say, you know, be in contention, be up there in the leaders, get us all excited that he could possibly do it. It's one of the great stories, you know, for him to have a career Grand Slam would be absolutely great for Phil. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it, but I just don't think this is the week for it in here.
And to have come so close. Okay, I think we're here.
Yeah, and then I'm going to give you this one here. Pebble is the best U.S. Open venue.
I thought about this a lot, and, you know, again, I don't know like all of the U.S. Open venues inside and out, but of the typical ones, the Oakmonts and the Baltusrolls, the Shinnecocks, all your classic courses, I'm gonna play it. I'm going to say Pebble Beach, and again, I think it goes back to the total package of what we talked about and the winners that it's given us, from Jack Nicklaus to Tom Watson to Tiger Woods. It seems to always be the tournament that you want for a U.S. Open. Obviously, the venue being spectacular. I'm going to play it. I do think Pebble is the #1 U.S. Open venue. Curious to hear your thoughts.
I'm total agreement with you. I think Pebble is the best. I mean, I have the most fond memories of Nicklaus. I mean, I distinctly remember Tom Watson and that little jog after he chipped in and running around there and clubs up and you know, I think it is, and I think it's not just because of the golf. I think it's because of the whole package of it. Yeah. In there, it's a tough course and small greens. This week it's going to play a little harder, but I think it is the #1.
And the vistas, obviously, the views. I mean, it's funny. It's at a public course. Pebble's like as public as sort of, I think, like we are, you know, like uber professional. Like, kind of in its technicality. But, you know, certainly like that's part of it. Just the whole U.S. Open national tournament feel of the place. You like the iconic courses. And that's what... that's certainly what Pebble brings. Not the best place to attend a golf tournament. Bottlenecks real quick, and because of all the water, there's less space to stand. Like any space that is water, exactly, is not a place for galleries. So that's a different story. But I'm going to play it as well. Okay, this is one of the most interesting little nuggets from the week that I saw here that made its way quickly and immediately into Play It, Drop It, Roll It. Jason Day is using Stevie Williams as a caddy. play it, drop it, roll it. Stevie coming out of retirement off the couch this week with his 13 majors on Tiger's bag to caddy for Jason Day.
I'm playing this one. I think it's the most intriguing thing that's happened. That's sort of on the cusp of the game itself. Stevie Williams, of course, has great memories of playing at Pebble Beach with Tiger. He knows the course inside out. He's a superb pick to have somebody as a caddy for you to go there and play.
So Stevie's not playing with Jason Day? Like he didn't?
He will.
Stevie's not going to hit any shots with
he
him
might
or
not.
anything?
He might have to. We'll see if Jason's back holds up. Stevie might have to jump in there and take over. But, of course, the intriguing thing is what happens with the pairings, on the weekend. If
heaven forbid Jason
and Tiger are up there
and this is kind of like this is a pairing from down under, right?
Yeah,
with Jason Day and Stevie Williams. I'm going to play it for this reason for Jason Day. Like, it feels like Jason Day needs a bit of a kickstart. It feels like Jason Day has kind of gotten into a malaise of whether or not he's going to be a great player. And it does seem like there's always some sort of distraction, some injury story, something going on with Jason Day where it's a negative and it's pulling him back. And I think, why not?
Why not?
Why not? If Stevie Williams is available, who, let's be honest, you can make the jokes about what happened with Tiger and what he said when Stevie won with Adam Scott, but there aren't many better caddies on tour. There aren't.
No.
And so for the opportunity to use Stevie with his experience and his resolve and especially his ability to handle the pressure, should it get there for Jason Day, I say absolutely play it.
We're in total agreement on that.
I'm excited though, man.
Oh, yeah.
I like a little Stevie back in the mix, man.
Yeah. So for you now, John, you're this one here, paying $500 for a round at Pebble.
I'm dropping this one.
Okay.
I'm dropping this one. Would I do it? Yeah. But I think, does that contribute to so many people saying, well, Pebble wasn't all it was cracked up to be, all I was expected to be? Well, not when you're paying $550 for a round of golf. That's what I mean. It's public, but it ain't really public. You can't get on there ever in terms of tee times. And you pay $1,000 to play if we want that to be public. I don't know. I don't think that any round of golf should be half a grand, and I don't think that I would really feel great about doing it and playing it, even though, obviously playing Pebble would be a once in a lifetime thing. It's just hard to get my mind around that. Would I do it? Probably, yeah. If I had Stuart Conway money, absolutely. I'd pay for the rest of the foursome and the next tee times. But, I don't know. I'd roll it. I've paid $200 for rounds of golf before, $240, $250, and that was, that's Turnberry, and that's Royal Portrush, and that's, Carnoustie, and that's half of what you pay to play Pebble.
Yeah, I think I'm absolutely playing it for $500. And because it
literally playing it.
It's an iconic golf course. It is a bucket list golf course. It's somewhere that you've got to go and play. Nicholas says if you have one course to play, it would be Pebble. So
they charge you $550 and just price gouge you, out of house and home.
And that's what it. But I think at some point in time, there are many courses around the country that you're going to pay a very similar price to that to play, which are not of the same value or quality as Pebble is going to.
Yeah, so that's a flip. Okay.
Yeah, and so
you're actually getting a value for Pebble at that bracket.
Look at some of those private courses you can go and play. Look at some of the other courses you can go and play. I played a course while
Hackin Hank to have the Stuart Conway money, what it would mean to to view Pebble Beach in that respect. Actually, you're getting a bargain when go ahead.
It's worth every cent of going.
Okay,
there. It's worth every cent of going there. It's kind of like you've just got to go and do it.
And you hear both sides. You hear a lot of people. I saw a tweet, Pebble, and someone tweeted, "How in the world you could possibly play Pebble and say it's anything other than everything you ever wanted?" It's just it's a fallacy.
Hey, listen, I understand if you go there and shoot 120,
Well, you might, and that's what I mean. It's a lot of money to pay for.
Not a lot of fun there.
Crappy golf. Speaking of Pebble, the 18th hole is the best hole on the course. Play it, drop it, roll it.
Oh, gosh, there are so many great, iconic holes at Pebble Beach.
This is not that hard.
But it is the best hole.
It is. Right.
It is the
Like,
best
I mean,
hole.
we can overthink this and try to say,
it
like
is
I
the
love
best
6
hole.
on the
Yeah.
front side, the par 3. But we're talking about a 2-shot par 5 that hooks around the lake to finish the hole. It is maybe the most iconic hole, top 10 in the world of any hole on any course. And especially, right, to have a finisher where you can have so much drama in terms of a 2-shot par 5 that you can literally, if you're behind the tree like Tiger Woods did in 2010, and hit a big cut out over the water. This side of the water. You can go for it in 2. You can play a setup, the way it looms, the way the tee box sets. I think it's a pretty easy one, actually. As many as the great holes. You try to think, I'm like,
but there are
dude,
some iconic holes. The par 3s are just fantastic.
I also think though that like it being the 18th hole in its own right as a signature hole, as a finisher hole, I think has some lore about it also. Like everyone remembers the 18th hole, 6th hole in a round kind of gets a little lost.
Yeah, I agree. And yes, we both agree on this. It is the best hole.
Okay, let's pick one of these last 2 here.
Okay. Which one are we picking? Tiger's chances to win.
That's a good pick because we already talked about Rory a little bit.
Yeah, we did.
I'm going to play it. I think that Tiger Woods, and we had a great conversation in our show last week with Brendan Porath. He said, look, not only is Tiger doing what he used to, he's the best in the world at a lot of things in terms of strokes gained to the green, in terms of his approach play, his iron play. We talked about it a lot at the Masters. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't bottling magic over, 4 days, kind of like, or even a back 9 like Jack did in 86. This was a guy who was one of the top 5 players in the world the majority of last year, who going into Augusta I felt like was going to win. He outplayed everyone for 4 days in vintage Tiger form. He played well at Memorial last week. His form, everything about it, I think, should suggest that Tiger has a big chance this week. It's like you can kind of maybe see a situation where, look, he just doesn't have it, but I'd be surprised. I think everything is clicking in place for Tiger to contend.
Yeah, I think that everybody thinks and hopes that he plays well and contends in it all. I'm also going to play it. I mean, I think he has a chance to win. I think he has a good chance to win, not least of which because he seems to really like putting on Poana greens and I think the last time he won there, he had a strokes gained of over 3 on the greens. So it's a really big thing. The only thing with Tiger is straight off the tee. Yeah. Straight off the tee. And
which it seems he found a little bit at Memorial with that cut that he hit mostly at Augusta.
And that works for him. Yeah, he's got every chance. And again, I think he's certainly in my top 10. I'm not saying where, but he's in my top 10.
Our picks coming up in Punch Out to the end of the show. Let's do this now to close. Let's go back to 2000. Okay. Led by 6 after 2 rounds, 10 shots after 3 rounds, 15 shots after 4 rounds. He won by 15 shots in 2000. It was the largest margin of victory since the American Civil War. He didn't 3-putt a green all week. He 1-putted 34 out of 72 holes. Played the first 22 holes without a bogey, the final 26 without a bogey. He tied the all-time scoring record at a U.S. Open when no one else was even under par. It was the greatest display of 4 days in golf I think we've ever seen in history and won't see again.
I have nothing to add.
That's all. And I just wanted to get it out there and run it down because there is nothing. It's just when you think back and appreciate the form that he was in 2000, the masterpiece, the Mona Lisa that he painted at Pebble Beach. And here we're talking almost 19 years later that this very same guy has a chance to win this week. And we expect him to just... Yet another mind-blowing, just remarkable essence of the greatest, athlete and golfer. I think that certainly, I've seen it in my lifetime. Exciting to have Tiger back in the mix again. Exciting to have Ryan Ballengee in the mix with Golf News Net. We've still got Tough Lies coming up. We're going to let the Gent just whack away at the USGA, but we're going to try to make some sense of it all as well. He's Stuart the Gent Conway. I'm John Wiener, Hackin Hank in here, Josh the Juice on audio. We're glad you're with us on Play It Where It Lies.
The good, the bad, the hard in golf.
And we welcome in Golf News Net's Ryan Ballengee now with us on Play It Where It Lies. Owner, editor, does a great job and has been on a friend of the program here, been with us for a couple of years now. Ryan, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us today.
Great. Happy U.S. Open week. Thanks for having me on.
Ryan, how fired up do you get for U.S. Open week, and specifically this week at Pebble?
I love the U.S. Open. I mean, it is one of the three truly with character. No slant to the PGA Championship, but it's basically just a harder PGA Tour event. U.S. Open has its own history, has its own thing. It has Father's Day, and that's taken on a different meaning for me since I've had children.
Yeah.
And going to Pebble is always special. I mean, Pebble is the coolest place in the world. I love the Monterey Peninsula. The whole vibe around the place is great. So it should be a wonderful week. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think the location is something that we've never touched on here, Ryan. But going around to Pebble Beach and on the Monterey Peninsula with all the wine and everything, is there anything outside of golf that you really like to do when you're down there?
Well, when I was out there in 2010, I was actually out there with my wife. We had just got married, and we went a 17-mile drive.
Oh wow!
In a convertible, which was amazing.
Yeah.
In-N-Out Burger was delicious. That was the first time I've been there. And then we went into Carmel by the Sea, and we love that town so much, we named our daughter's middle name after Carmel by the Sea. So a pretty incredible place. And it's just kind of different than being on the East Coast or being in the Southeast or being anywhere in this country. It's just a different vibe. I mean, there's a lot of money, and there's a lot of wine, and there's a lot of stuff that maybe it's just unique to that part of the world, but it really can be pretty special, and you can kind of get sucked into it.
Yeah.
And Stuart, and as you and I have talked about, the quality of the tournament and the winners that we've seen at Pebble Beach, from Jack in '72 to certainly Tiger, and everybody that was in contention with Graham McDowell winning in 2002, I think bears out what a great U.S. Open venue, specifically Pebble, is. Ryan, in terms of winners this week, how much did Rory's tour de force taking a part of the entire country of Canada this past weekend, how much did that sort of change anything as we look at who we expect to win this week at Pebble?
It's hard not to get excited about what Rory did on Sunday. I mean, he shot 61, has a bunker shot away from 59, and looked unstoppable on Sunday, basically. I mean, that's Rory McIlroy playing his best golf is the sexiest golf that there is. And at the same time, you go to Pebble, and it's not but 7,000 yards to play. There's not going to be a whole lot of wind. The USGA is going to kind of narrow the fairways a little bit more than the PGA Tour does from week to week. So you've got some premium on driving the ball, of course, but Rory hitting a 370-yard drive at Pebble Beach probably isn't going to happen on that many holes other than the par fives. Yeah. And even then, if he hits one really deep onto, say, 14, the 14th green is so small and has been notoriously unlikely to hold second shots, especially in these U.S. Opens, that I don't know that it's that much of an advantage. So I think in one sense you got to be excited by what Rory did, but on the other, the way that he plays golf isn't necessarily going to get paid off at Pebble Beach. So I think he could play great. It still might not help him as much as we would like it to.
Yeah, talking about these small greens that they've got there, and obviously they're I don't know if there's been an awful lot of rain down there that's going to make them any softer. Do you think that's going to have one of the biggest impacts on the game? Is the greens, the way that the Poan is going to grow in the afternoons, the way the greens aren't holding, and the difficulty of playing a run-up shot to the green to stay on there?
Yeah, I think a lot of folks will focus on the narrowing of the fairways from tee to green because that's just what the USGA does. But I think you're right. I think the story is the greens and how they're going to putt. POA is just funky in the summer. I mean, we have POA at My Country Club's greens. Later in the day, as a lot of people know, it buds and it grows and it starts to get bumpy and slow. And so each person in the field is going to get a turn playing golf in those conditions. Whether or not they do well with them is another thing entirely. But with small putting surfaces, you just got to get on the greens to give yourself even a modest chance of making a birdie. There's some places that even on those small greens you don't want to be, and so you still got to be precise. I mean, it can't just get on the green, but getting on the green is going to save you a lot of problems. And it was interesting looking back at how Tiger demolished Pebble Beach in 2000, and the thing that he did so well was just hit greens, just give it a chance. And the greens weren't particularly firm. I don't think they're going to be particularly firm this week because there was a lot of rain leading into the championship. So I don't think it's going to recover in time to be super firm and fast, kind of like we got 2010. So So I think these guys are going to be able to score on this golf course, and that means just you're going to have to be able to put the ball in play and get yourself a short iron in your hand if you're a longer hitter. And if you can do that, you might get a lot of good looks at birdie.
Ryan Ballengee with us here on Play It Where It Lies. Get him at Golf News Net and, of course, at Ryan Ballengee. And, Ryan, when you talk about the USGA and the setup, obviously they've made some missteps. But to put it one way, but also, as you just said, at the end of the day, everyone plays the same course no matter what the conditions may be. Are we making too much of this? Is it the thing to do now to put out the social media video, especially with the rough? Like, I just feel like as much of an issue as it has been sometimes, I think it's like we're looking for it to happen. It's almost like this self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit, and an easy target maybe in some ways. I think we just generally make too much of this conversation, and the players do as well every week at the U.S. Open. What are your thoughts on it?
I feel like a couple of the last few U.S. Opens got away from the USGA at portions. Like at Chambers Bay, some of the greens literally were dirt. I mean, dirt spots. The grass just was not well taken care of. Now, everyone had to play on those dirt greens, but that wasn't something the PGA Tour guys, European Tour guys are used to seeing, and so they were very vocal against the USGA, even though I think they just kind of took a bad guess in tandem with the Chambers Bay agronomy team. Yeah. Not entirely their fault. And then you get into 2017 at Erin Hills, and everyone goes, well, 16 under 1. Well, it was a par 72 golf course. So that doesn't usually happen in the U.S. Open. Call it a par 70. Call it a par 68. I don't care. It doesn't matter what par is. It was still a difficult, long golf course that just didn't get any wind. What are you going to do? Yeah. And then last year, I think that there was some legitimate criticism for what happened on Saturday afternoon, just because they lost the golf course for about 2.5 hours. And it wasn't the entire golf course. Yeah. They lost portions of the golf course. And so that was the situation where you get Daniel Berger and Tony Finau going from, T45 into the final group together because they just went out there and put up a good number just before everything went to hell. I think that was really what drew most of the criticism. And I think that's when that specific situation in Shinnecock is when I would be critical of the USGA is it could be hard for everybody. That's absolutely fine. You can make everybody look bad. That's okay. But don't make it so that for 2 hours or so, it's just bad for a specific subset of players. If it's going to be bad, make it bad and miserable for everybody. If it's going to be great, make it easy for everybody. But you kind of have to be somewhat equitable as you can be in that regard.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point there. It really is. So, we try to break down who is going to do well, who isn't going to do well, and in your opinion, driving accuracy or driving length is going to be key this week.
I think it's driving accuracy, and I think that just because again the golf course is 7,050 yards. I mean, it's not very long for a modern major championship. They're either going to stretch out Pebble Beach. They don't have any new real estate on the Monterey Peninsula to add, so it's just going to be what it is. And so the way that they're going to trick this up for the U.S. Open is to make the fairway landing areas fairly tight, going to try and make the greens as firm as they can, make you hit a very accurate shot. Otherwise, there are going to be a lot of bounces left, right, and over the greens. So if you don't think you can get there, don't be a hero. Just hit it short, and then just try and play your way up and make pars. And I think as someone who is intelligent and realizes that pretty early on in the week will have a good week. But I think it's way more important to be in the fairway because of how long pretty much every person is in this field that's going to have a chance to win is. Yeah. So if you're just hitting 290 off the tee, even 275 off the tee of this golf course, really isn't that bad. So I think if you want to just be in play, give yourself, again, mid-iron, short iron, and then handle the par threes. I mean, I think that's the big ask this week. 17 is no joke, never been a joke. No. It's not going to be a joke this week. If you look at all the par threes in this golf course, they're really where they can step up and get you. And so I think if you can handle those well, they're going to be the longest shots a lot of these guys are going to face all the day. If you can handle them well, you can score and get around the par fives. You'll put up an okay number. I have a feeling at the end of the week, maybe 3, 4, 5 under par wins. I think that the USGA may overcorrect a little bit and try to find someone who's a little bit more under par.
And so, Ryan, as we move to close, it sounds like with everything that we're talking about, you have your consensus favorites, right? Obviously, Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson and Tiger, and probably now, Rory with the way that he played last week. And those guys, obviously three of the longest guys on tour, and Tiger striking the ball as well as they are, has put himself in that group. But it sounds like maybe that this tournament's pretty wide open. And do you expect a leader maybe to emerge from not that consensus of sort of our big heavyweight favorites?
I think it's possible, especially compared to Bethpage, which was just what a U.S. Open has historically been. Long, narrow, nasty, and Brooks Koepka made it look like child's play. But that's not gonna work at Pebble because it's shorter. You can't overpower the golf course because it's short. So I think you got to find yourself in play, and that opens up the door to a lot of guys. I think it opens the door to Matt Kuchar, who, if the wind blows at all, hits it kind of low, and he hits a lot of fairways and greens. Think about it. Kevin Kistner has a great short game, so if for whatever reason his good iron play isn't clicking, he can get up and down from a lot of funky spots. I think about Webb Simpson, who has come back sort of into that 2018 form in the last month or two, very quietly until he posted that T2 yesterday. Now I think people are noticing what he's doing again. So then you think about Tommy Fleetwood, who has had a very good run the last couple of years in these championships. Shot a 63 last year in the final round at Shinnecock. He's probably a guy who likes this championship. Maybe Francesco Molinari. Maybe he's not over the Masters yet. But if he is, this is a golf course where he should do really well. And then, of course, I think about Jordan Spieth, who isn't over the whole I stink on weekends thing, but he's getting closer. And on a golf course where bumpy greens kind of matter, it takes away short putting advantages because he's not a good short putter, I think that can kind of play into his hands a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good Fleetwood and Molinari. I can just see those guys throwing darts in all weekend, man. You got to hit some small greens. It's those two. Ryan, before we close, you didn't mention Phil Mickelson anywhere in there. Has that ship sailed in terms of Phil being able to contend and potentially get the career Grand Slam at the U.S. Open?
I don't think that it's sailed. I mean, he won here in February. We can't discount that, right? Even though they're completely different golf courses 4 months apart. But still, the guy won here. Yeah. He loves this golf course. He's playing this event every year on the PGA Tour. He knows what this golf course is going to do. So I think you can't discount that. But I feel like he shows up most weeks on the PGA Tour just playing golf to play golf. And he seems to be going through a midlife crisis at this point, talking about hitting bombs all the time. And doesn't matter if he hits the fairway and stuff like that. It's cute. I mean, it's great social media fodder, but he's got to kind of clamp it down this week. If he doesn't do that, if he doesn't get himself in play, hitting 45 to 52% of the fairway just is not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. So if he feels like he can find the fairway with his two-driver system, if he does that, or whichever of the two drivers he goes with, as long as he keeps it in play, I think he can do just fine. But I think that ship has sailed where we come into a major and go, what about Phil? Well, the answer is, what about Phil? If he shows up after 36 holes, cool. I think everyone will be very excited, and I think he'll find a way to kind of stick around till the end. But if he doesn't get out the gates well, there's really no point in having a conversation about it. So I hope he does great, but I don't have him in my top 10 this week.
Far from a midlife crisis, in fine form in his prime, Ryan Ballengee, Golf News Net. Ryan, thanks for joining us. I know how much you love the U.S. Open. We can't wait for it. Enjoy it, and I will talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Ryan Ballengee with Golf News Net. You can get him on Twitter at Ryan Ballengee. That's with 2 A's. Does a great job. 2 E's. Does a great job with Golf News Net, and that's at Golf News Net. And Stuart, you talk about. I think it's a good way to put kind of Phil's emergence or resurgence in some ways as a bit of a midlife crisis. Like he's hitting bombs again, but it's like, wait, Phil, what's going on here?
I think Phil might just like the little side bets going on during the rounds.
Yeah. Can I hit it 340 over here? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, look, I'm hitting bombs.
Well, look, I thought Ryan had a lot of really interesting things to say as it relates to who we pick and the different categories that we have coming up at the end of the show. So I'm excited for that. Always great to have Ryan Ballengee. Yeah. Great to have you with us on Play It Where It Lies. Remember, you can play it on your phone, on the course, in the car, and play it anywhere. Just play it where it lies. The Gent, Stuart, Conway. I'm John Wiener. We're keeping rolling.
Golf gives and takes away. We play it where it lies.
The Gent, Stuart, Conway. I'm John Wiener. Glad to have the Gent back in the rotation, man. We missed you out there in Phoenix.
Nice to be back. Nice to be back. We had a great trip. We did, but
how'd you play at PGA West? I know it's a tough course.
I played pretty good. I played with Mark Strickland, who was the Georgia Open winner just a few weeks back, and he put it to me. He said, "You played like a 4 handicap for the first 12 holes and a +3 for the last 6." He said,
"How about that?"
Yeah, it was. I hit some.
Sounds like you played pretty well.
I did.
And to finish strong at PGA West. That's a course that can kind of wear on you a little bit.
Yeah,
Deep dive at his best.
It was. Unfortunately, it was like an in-house tournament for Yamaha, so we actually had to play a scramble. So kind of to go there and not play your own ball. Mark and I wanted to play our own ball, but it was. Better part of valor was to say, no, we'll just play the scramble with everybody else. And
better part of valor, the Gent personified. And, we love, playing all over the world. And that's so exciting about the game of golf is no matter where you go, it's a different scene and a different course. But, as I know you're looking to, live the full-time life on that Stuart Conway money, Phoenix isn't a bad place to go settle down, huh? But you need a lot of it.
You need a lot of money to settle down in Phoenix, I promise you. The houses you want to live in are some rather salubrious surroundings there.
I'm sure. Well, let's get into our Tough Lies segment. And you talk about tough lies. I don't think that anything is more appropriate to discuss in Tough Lies in terms of literally what this segment is going to be about in the USGA setup and the lies that they create, but also the difficult position that they're in and this conversation and controversy that we have around the USGA and how they set it up every year. Let's go back real quick to last year with Shinnecock and the disaster of 2018. And you heard Ryan say, it was only about 2.5 hours really on Saturday, but they lost the course, and it felt like a disaster last year.
It did, and was. It changed the tournament, and listen, Ryan was very kind to the USGA, in my opinion. I as you know, I am less kind to the USGA.
I thought he was right. That's what I'm getting at. I thought in the way he broke down Chambers and Aaron Hills, but Shinnecock was a disaster. Shinnecock, they messed up.
Listen, I'm going to go back to all of it here and say, listen, I've said this before. The USGA are in the United States and for most of the world views the USGA as the custodians of our game. They're supposed to know these things. They're supposed to take into account the possibilities that can happen, what can happen if the weather changes, what can happen if we lose greens. Go there early enough to make sure that we don't lose greens. Go there early enough to make sure that we don't have to, in the middle of a tournament, start widening fairways and things.
And that's where the problem comes.
My whole point is about this. It isn't about the fact that it's a 2-hour or, where we just had some bad greens, we just had the wind gets up, the weather changes. They're supposed to know that. Now, we can't know everything in life, but we have to make it so that we minimize the possibilities of things going wrong, and they have done a lousy job at doing that.
I think it's a little deeper, and I think it sort of we both hit on it in certain ways. Because my thing is, and that's what I posed with Ryan Ballengee, and that was his point about Chambers Bay and Aaron Hills, is that at the end of the day, everyone was playing the same golf course. The greens being as baked out and bad as they were at Chambers Bay, everyone played the same course. Aaron Hills, too easy, fairways too wide. Everybody played the same course. At Shinnecock, the point that he made, because the USGA within the tournament, within the round, was reacting so much and panic reacting so much and overreacting and changing the course or not in between round to round, but even within the round, and that was how you got Tony Finau and Daniel Berger. We were out there on Saturday, and we saw the carnage. I was at Shinnecock, and you got back and said, Tony who? Yeah. Daniel what? These guys are leading? And it was literally, it played different
Yes.
It didn't play the same for everybody. It played different over that stretch. And I think the problem is, and so many times in life, is not the initial problem, but how you react to it and how you handle it and how you manage it. And that is really where I think the USGA has dropped the ball in terms of like their face towards the press and how they handle the players, but also how they react and overreact or don't within the course of a tournament.
I can take all those points and the reaction or overreaction or underreaction as the tournament is going on is one thing. If they had proper plans in place at the beginning, they wouldn't have to react because they would have a plan in place. We know that if we hit a golf ball left into the rough, we have to play a shot different than we hit it center in the fairway.
Yeah.
But we already know that. We have our plan. We're going to chip out. We're going to do this. The USA just doesn't seem to have an overall plan which encompasses all the possibilities that can happen at a U.S. Open. This is the national championship of the United States. This isn't, your local member guest.
So let me ask you this, as an absolute historian of the game who knows it better than just about anyone I know. Has this always been the case? Like, when did this start becoming the conversation with the USGA and the U.S. Open?
It started becoming the conversation when the USGA failed to recognize the distance the ball was traveling now, how far people were hitting it, and that the fact that they were hitting it so far, it didn't matter that they were in the rough. They tried to compensate for equipment changes, etc., by changing courses. It should be a tough golf course. Everybody should play a hard course. It is the national championship. It's the U.S. Open. But as soon as the equipment changed, we no longer saw them. They're compensating for the equipment that people have got, not on the game of golf itself. And their refusal to admit that distances have changed, by coming up with these statistics of it's only gone 2.7 yards further, when we all know I'm hitting the ball as far now as I did when I was 30 years old. They failed to recognize that in the game of golf and are trying to compensate on it in the worst way when it comes to the national championship.
Why is it so hard? Why, seemingly, as you say, they should know, again, why is it so hard to get right for them?
I have no idea. I just think it's their we are the USGA and we know better than anybody else.
Okay.
And that's my honest opinion of it all. And they may know better than anybody else, but they're not making the plans to make it correct before they start.
What is the fix? How do you do it?
Well,
because a lot of people have put this to the players and said, okay, well, players, this, that, and you have all these complaints. Like, how should they do it? How should they do it?
Well, they should make a setup, which is a tough setup of a golf course. They should make sure that where they go, they're there in plenty of time to make sure the course is in the condition that it deserves to be in. We don't want to be playing on dirt greens. We don't want to see the finest professionals in the world. You're struggling with bumpy, dirty greens. But if we play with Poana greens, it's okay. We understand what Poana does. We understand it grows during the day, and it grows quite rapidly and changes the concept. We understand if it's a very narrow fairway, that the players' accuracy is important. But they don't seem to concentrate on any one thing apart from just making it darn hard. And instead of making it fair hard, they just try and make it hard. And when Tiger Woods was the exception, just imagine if Tiger Woods had shot over par and the winner was 3 over, and everybody said that it was just way too hard. One person blew it away because of his total abilities at the time. That shouldn't be the way it is. One person should not be able to go and run away with a golf tournament.
I think that we just are making a little too much of it in the end. As I think a lot of it is, and I won't go to the society today thing, but you heard about Ryan. It's been an instance here and a situation there, but I just think in our culture today, especially in social media, we look to be critical. We look for low-hanging fruit. We look for narratives that can be hot-button issues, that can create controversy, whether it's an easy target here or a sort of juicy debate there. And I just think, Stuart, at the end of the day, shut up and play a little bit. I think media people, I think, like, again, there are certain spots where they've made bad decisions, but I just think for whatever reason, and I think a lot of it being like, we like to be critical and controversial, and especially with sort of easy national institutional targets, like they're an easy target. I think we make too much of it, quite frankly, and it's starting to frustrate me a little bit, especially from the players who make more money than anybody, are better than anybody. Like, I don't care about your little drop on social media. You're Patrick freaking Cantley. Shut up and play.
I mean, your point is well taken, but let's put it this way. We don't have this issue with any other major tournament.
Fair.
We don't have this issue mainly every week.
Fair.
We have good golf courses where the best player generally wins on the week. The player who plays the best wins. When you're talking about a tournament where the best player might not win because of the time of day he went out at,
fair.
Not because of the weather, but because of the course setup.
That's not the case at the Open Championship when depending on the weather or the draw. I mean, nobody rails against the R&A when Rory McIlroy, has to go out on a Saturday morning and shoot 81, and Oosthuizen got to go walk and shoot 61.
Yeah, that was a bad choice of words for me, and I will concede that. I will concede that. But you really want the best players to be able to go out and play the game of golf. It is the organizers of the golf tournament, whichever body they are, that has to make all of the critical decisions ahead of time, so that no matter what happens, they have the playbook to go on and make the change that is necessary.
No, it's a great point, but I do think that the big problem for them has become in sort of handling the backlash. They haven't done it well.
No, they haven't.
And in terms of and you forget about the whole thing with Dustin Johnson and Oakmont, like that wasn't a course thing, but the rules interpretation and how they handled it was also an awful look. And it's been a lot of, again, how they seem so sensitive and were the USGA. As long as the course plays the same Thursday through Sunday and plays the same Thursday morning to Thursday afternoon, that's a big thing for me. So we will see how it goes. I think you and I and everybody kind of expects, like, you can't mess Pebble up.
You can't
but
mess
like
Pebble up.
I'm sure that, like, in our society and golf Twitter and everything else, like, we will find something to hold USGA's feet to the fire.
I hope we don't
this weekend.
I hope we don't. I hope we just talking on Monday, next Monday, about the winner and what a great tournament it was.
Well, let's move into the punch-outs, and let's see who that winner is going to be. Real quick, shout out Allie McDonald, Fulton native, Mississippi State grad, third place finish at the ShopRite Classic. She's looking for her LPGA Tour, her first win. She's absolutely going to bust through. She's making a whole pile of Stuart Conway money this year in just 3 tournaments. So big shout out to Allie McDonald.
Yeah. Also, Jonathan Randolph finished third this week on the web.com, so that was good too.
Good for him. Jonathan Randolph, Ole Miss product, friend of the program. Okay, let's get into our picks. We do the same version of it for every major. We have 4 different categories, which is essentially the favorite who won't be there, the guy we know is going to contend on Sunday, whether or not he wins, our dark horse from way back in the pack, and of course, our winner. So we'll start with the first one. Who's the national no-show this week?
I've got my dear friend Ricky Fowler.
Oh boy! Again,
you knew that.
You don't think he's gonna contend at all?
Not at all.
Where is he gone, Ricky Fowler?
I don't know. He seems to be around, not around. This year, worse than ever, almost.
Are we getting further away from sort of Ricky Fowler as opposed to, like, that day is coming? Are we actually getting further away from it?
I think we're further away from it. I think he's no longer the best player not to win a major.
I think you're right there also.
And I think that... how far down he is, I don't know, but I've got him in as the no-show.
This is going to surprise some people, I think, although he's probably the best pick every week in terms of favorites who may not show. I'm going to go with Rory McIlroy for a couple of reasons. One, historically, it's really hard to play that good golf the week before and then duplicate it again. As I said, if there's one favorite in terms of, like, the guy who may just for whatever, in terms of inconsistency, who may for whatever reason just not have have it, it's Rory McIlroy. But also, I just think Pebble Beach is not a good setup for him, or at least is not as much as some of the past venues where he won, because as Ryan talked about, his length is mitigated a little bit. And I think Rory, the worst part of his game is hitting short irons, his approach shots. I think he's going to have a lot of those to those tiny greens. I think that's the weakness in Rory's game, and I think it's paramount this week for all of those reasons. He would be my pick amongst the favorites to be a no-show at the National Championship.
I think it's a solid pick on there, although I think the way he played, I think it's... I did think of that too, and it was actually Phil Mickelson's, as I had mentioned earlier, winning in Loch Lomond, the Scottish Open, followed by the Open. Made me rethink McIlroy on that, but he's that streaky player that we've come to love. That when he's on, when he's not, he really isn't.
I hope he's on this week. It's nothing more fun than watching Rory McIlroy in contention.
The Father's Day fixture.
I'm going to go with Tiger Woods on this one. I'm not sure if Tiger wins, but I expect him every reason to play well, and Tiger has, if no one else, shown us at the Open Championship last year at the PGA. No one is better at plotting out a course, doing what they can to get themselves into contention. We've talked with a couple of people. No one expected him. We didn't expect him to play well at the PGA at Bethpage after he won at the Masters. It had always been sort of trending to this. I think Tiger's game's in form. Obviously, the course fits him. And I think if anybody has proven a way, even at the Memorial, to find a way in the big tournaments to make some noise on the weekends and get himself into contention, I'd be really, really surprised if Tiger wasn't a factor on Sunday.
Yeah, and certainly, as I say, he's certainly in my top 10, Tiger, but not there. I've got Dustin Johnson there as the Father's Day fixture.
How could you not?
I just think he'll play well there. He's got distance, he's got length, he's got good accuracy, and I think he'll put well this week on those Poa annua greens. I think he'll be just fine on there. Rolls the ball nicely.
T2 at the Masters, T2 at the PGA, but really with Dustin Johnson and the U.S. Open stuff, I'm glad because I had charted this, and in 2010 at the PGA, this guy had a 3-shot lead going into Sunday and shot 80 frickin' 2. Yeah. And that kind of started this whole decade-long major saga with Dustin Johnson. You talk about the U.S. Open, you had that at Pebble. 3-putted Chambers Bay on the 72nd hole. Like, you forgot about that one. Won at Oakmont, certainly, in 2016, and, of course, with the whole rules thing hanging over him on Sunday. And you forgot at Shinnecock last year had a 4-shot lead after Friday, and so nowhere I don't think has DJ been more DJ in how he won and the close losses than Pebble Beach. Patriot in the pack, the guy from way back. Who's going to be our guy at the National Championship?
This is one of those ones that really surprised me when I looked at the odds, and I'm looking at this one here now. Then Patrick Reed. 80-1.
Really, Reed's that low.
80-1.
Again, hasn't been heard from since he won the Masters.
No, but here's the thing on this one here. He's been working with David Ledbetter, brought in there. He's been keeping himself quiet, no controversy, nothing going on. I'm thinking he's ready for this one. This is what he's been working for. He has the distance, he has the accuracy, and we know he has the mettle to stay in there right to the very end. I'm getting Patrick Reed.
80-1. That's not bad. And it's a good point. He's not the longest guy on tour. Like, he can't hit it quite with those guys. But in terms of the wedge game, hitting approach shots when he gets it dialed in, I like that Patrick Reed. Yeah. Listen, most of the guys Ryan Ballengee gave out in terms of that second tour, second tier, Webb Simpson at 66-1, who's won this thing, and Kevin Kisner at 125-1. Both of those are pretty good Patriots in the pack.
They are.
But I'm going to go with Louis Oosthuizen at 80-1. Wow. I think he's a guy who shows up in major championships, obviously.
He certainly does.
This course, especially with the small greens and minimalizing the need, to hit it 350. I like Keimer at 75-1, Oosthuizen 80-1, but I think I'll go with Uzi U there at 80-1. Feels like he's going to have a good week this week.
It's a wonderful choice. Again, I'm going to say it this way. I think that's another guy who's ship sailed to me. I think were you to give somebody awards for the most beautiful swing, and he won the Open just because he had the nicest swing, I'd give it to him. He's got a wonderful golf swing. I find it. I don't see Oosthuizen anymore as really.
He flashed at the Masters.
He did.
I think that's fair. That's probably I should have gone with the other guys, but
we'll
go with those. I didn't want to take Ryan Ballengee's pick. Patrick Reed. I have more faith in at 80-1 than Oosthuizen.
I had there, and I crossed it out, and you can look at my notes to see that.
Yeah.
I had Webb Simpson and Patrick Reed
down. Look,
and thought after this week the way that Webb Simpson played was he just played beautiful golf.
Webb at 66-1. I mean, Webb he's not an elite player on tour, but he's really good, and Webb is as good as like the U.S. Open that he won would indicate. Like he's not a fluke in the way that I think some people see him. Like Webb is really, really good, and if he's playing well, he's somebody to contend with, as we saw, at the Players Championship, and Keimer also.
And Keimer's been playing good golf.
Playing great.
He's
Again,
been playing really
guys
good
won
golf.
2 U.S. Opens, am I right? And it's in terms of somebody who hits it really straight, doesn't have to draw the ball, can do it over 4 days, and got some medal. I like Keimer.
I like that too. And next,
our national champion.
Who's it going to be?
You know what? This may surprise Hackin Hank. I thought about this a while, and I kind of had a change of heart earlier this week. I actually think it's going to be Jordan Spieth.
Look at that.
Yeah, Hackin Hank, surprise. I can see his eyebrows raised. But I think with Spieth's form.
Can somebody pick him up, please, over there?
Yeah, I know, right? He's floored. And listen, now look, I had Tiger in the Masters. He won it. I had Dustin Johnson at the PGA. He was second place. You had Brooks Koepka, when he won at Erin Hills initially. Like I feel like I've had a pretty good pulse on this. I think the way Spieth is playing, I think certainly the way the course sets up at the U.S. Open for Pebble specifically, everything that Ryan said about not having to be one of the 4 or 5 longest hitters on tour, getting the ball on the green, putting yourself in the right position. And you said the best putters on the Poana greens, being able to negotiate those, I think speaks to Spieth. And finally, Brooks Koepka, as you said, lighting a fire under everyone else. If anybody, I think, was going to respond, now look, McIlroy, it seems like he's doing it. Dustin Johnson seems like he's doing it. Tiger, we know, wants to put everyone in their place and already has. I think if anybody was sort of lit a fire under, it was Jordan Spieth with his 4 majors. Now all of a sudden, that's not the number one deal anymore on the PGA Tour, and so I think every reason Jordan Spieth rises up and wins another U.S. Open this week.
It's an absolutely fantastic pick. I had it down between 2 players, one of which was what I didn't pick, which was Jordan Spieth, 16-1. But I went with somebody also a 16-1. Patrick Cantlay.
You boy!
I think
Once
he's
and for all.
Oh yeah, I'm loving some Patrick Cantlay in this. I am. I think he's got an all-around terrific game. I like the guy. I think he learned from his mistakes of complaining about golf courses before he even gets up there. It's a surefire way not to play well, not to win, is to go in there with a negative attitude. I think he's going to go into this one with a very positive attitude. He's got all the game in the world to do it. He can drive it long and straight. He's got a great wedge game, and he putts really well. And I think he's got the all-around game to walk out of there on Sunday afternoon with that championship.
And it would be, as you've said for a while, coming for Patrick Cantlay.
Yes,
we talked about it, how, sort of before a lot of people, you spotted out Brooks Koepka. You've kind of been saying the same thing about Patrick Cantlay. Yeah. Hackin Hank and I said, I'm not buying it, Patrick Cantlay, as sort of a future elite player, a tour star, but you're saying this is the week that he shows it. He's been showing us.
He has. And I think he actually, my belief is, I think he will become an elite player. I think he will be. I mean, I know we all look for the, I'm going to steal Hank Haney's next best sliced bread, thing, but we've had the best 3, which are not the best 3 anymore.
Right.
And
we want to do that time
the famous
and time
5,
again.
and we want to put people in there. I'm putting Cantlay up there as an elite player, and maybe that's the term we should use, elite players, and not say the top 3, the top 5. we had the top three. It was Player, Nicholas, and Palmer. That was it. Let's leave it at that.
Well, I tell you talk about an elite player. Certainly, Jordan Spieth has been that, and looking to again reclaim that as everyone else making their charge. Tiger for a final time. Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson. You know, again, Rory McIlroy is not going to take a back seat to anybody, and McIlroy I think is a guy who responds with some fire. Also, he's got that in him. Stuart, I can see a scenario where all of those guys are in the mix this week. And it feels like more than ever in the major championships lately, the cream of the crop has risen to the top. And Hank, I may be wrong on this, but I'm thinking of countless majors in the last 2-3 years where we got the shootouts and the firepower at the top that we wanted. Just go back to the Masters and the PGA when you had all those guys at the Masters, and the PGA ultimately was Brooks and DJ at the end.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is the first time I have not picked a European in my picks. You know,
but again, like wouldn't be stunned at all if like Fleetwood and Molinari are battling it out on Sunday.
Casey, you know, I mean,
Paul Casey. I would be stunned if
would
Paul
you really?
Casey
I
was
would
up
not
there.
be stunned. I would not.
You're
be
really
stunned.
throwing Paul a life raft there at the end of it. You think the ship sailed on Louis Oosthuizen, and you're coming with Paul Casey? I love
Come on,
it.
if it hadn't been for his snowboarding accident, he would have been better than he is. He would have won more. I know that.
You know, a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda in golf, but only one is, and that's sort of the whole deal here on Play It Where It Lies. Well, it's a good show. Good to have you back.
It's great to be back.
The
great
Gent, Stuart, Conway. Big shout out to Ryan Ballengee, Golf News Net, for joining us. Always a great conversation. Make sure you get that. You can see, of course, Ryan and all his good stuff that he's doing at Golf News Net. And we encourage you, of course, to follow us, like us, share the show with all your golf friends. We really believe in what we're doing here. I put this show, really up against anything that anyone's doing out there. We appreciate you listening. And make sure you join us next week for Hackin Hank, Josh the Juice, the Gent, Stuart Conway. I'm John Wiener. U.S. Open coming up this week. We certainly can't wait for it. Thanks for joining us. Play it on your phone, in the car, on the course. Just play it where it lies.
Thanks for joining Play It Where It Lies. Tee it up with us every week at Bash Brothers Media. Driven by Gulf States Golf Cars.